are you guys? Thank you for joining us. This is Mr. Juan, and today we are excited to bring a free guitar workshop in which we're going to be talking and covering guitar pedals, which ones you should buy, why, in what order, and as much detail as we can, especially for beginners, especially for young beginners. We are from the Hit Music Studio. My name is Diego, and we have both have been teaching for a long time, and we get this question all the time. And one of the reasons that we like to share this content is because for both of us, I guess there was a moment that you heard a recording, right?
Yeah.
And you wanted to sound like the recording, and you were like, well, but my guitar doesn't sound like that. Now, it is a very interesting thing because sometimes people don't really know the technology and the elements that go into someone else's playing. So we are excited to have you, and thank you, Steph and Liani, for joining us. And definitely let us know there in the comments, especially how old you are and where you're watching from. We want to continue to keep on putting content like this, so it's great to hear who's watching and to keep on helping you guys. And also we want to mention there's a PDF that you can register for. The link would be in the description of this video, especially when we get done with the live session. And in the PDF, we not only have a very good description of the pedals, what do they do, but we also have the links to the products that we recommend. And we definitely want to make everyone's life easy because there's a ton of pedals out there. We'll talk about them. But at the same time, we want to give you guys a very specific option so people can quickly go and go into some of the stuff. Now, let's go there back to the shot there of the pedals. So this is Mr. Juan's pedal there, pedal board. So how long have you had this one?
I've had a combination for a few years, but I swap pedals in and out a lot. But I've had this one, steady for the most part, aside from this pedal. This is like a new one right there.
Okay.
But I've had it for a few years. I've been building pedals for, I want to say, like 8 years.
Okay.
Pedal board, so it's a journey.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to tell this to students, it's like going to an ice cream place. And you get to an ice cream place and there's like, 6, 8 flavors, and you can get a little sample. That's exactly what that is. There's a bunch of flavors. You can combine 2 of them, 3 of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they should not be combined. For example, mint and chocolate. For you, should be combined or no?
I don't mind.
To me, no mint and chocolate, please. But one thing that for us is important is to give you an idea, especially if you are young, because we're talking about a good amount of money. We will maybe talk a little bit about the amount of money that is in his pedal board, but we want to give you guys an idea where to get started. Because the great thing about it, and I mentioned this in I guess introductory video that I was doing the other day, you can get started in a piano. You change piano and it's $500, $1,000, and it's one instrument. There's not one thing that you can buy and change it and plug it in and makes it sound different. In guitar, it's almost like the flavors can always continue to be changed, and you can continue to do different pedals. So let me see if everything is working here fine, and we can show you this. So what is a guitar pedal board? Guitar pedal board is a small group of electronic effects that are usually placed on the floor to change our guitar sound. And one thing that we really like about trying to do this content here, and let me see if we can go to the next one, is talking about some of the elements that we're going to be covering today. So there's 4 or 5 different ones. Now there in the picture we have top right is a tuner, right? Then on the bottom, the green one is an overdrive, and then we have a reverb. For the most part, you're talking about 4 or 5 different elements to the pedal board and to what they're gonna do in order to get us to truly change our sound. So let's probably jump into the first one. Let me see if I can change here to the first. What would you say is one of the first elements that we wanna try to go to?
Tuner. Is that the first one?
Yeah, let me see if I can go back. So let's see. Now we're using somewhat of a new system here, so it's fun, but it's challenging. So we have a guitar tuner. Now, what's a guitar tuner? It's of course an instrument, or I guess a device that helps us to measure the frequencies. Why do you want that in your pedal board? Because there's the clip-on ones. So the clip-on ones, you can put them, and if you want to have there to show them one. So those you can put it on the neck. They work with vibration. But why do we want one of these? And this is actually the ones that we recommend. It's a Polytone 2 from TC Electronics. But why do you want that on your pedal board and not necessarily on your neck?
Well, sometimes you're gonna forget this at home. It's happened to me before.
Sometimes you're gonna drop the guitar and they break because they are they're great, but they are sensitive and they are fragile.
Exactly.
So this is designed to be stepped on.
Yeah, and these you get the straight signal from the guitar for
Yeah.
the most part, and it's dependable, especially on stage.
Yeah.
You can see it and all that stuff.
Now, one of the reasons that I really like this is because has a mute button, and pretty much when you press it to tune, it kills your sound. So it makes sure that your sound is not going through to whatever you're being used to amplify it. And that, to me, and we're gonna do a video which I would like to call it like almost like a ethique for musicians, things that like etiquette, the things that you do not do on rehearsals. Do not tune with your volume on.
Yeah.
Ever, you know, if you wanna be respectful of other people, there's no need to have your guitar full blast and be tuning. Now, if you're an acoustic guitar, that's a little bit different, but still try to lower the sound. There's no need to be tuning super loud. Now, how much would you say tuners run for?
Those about 100, about 100. They
about
run
$100.
Yeah.
And then the one that you don't have one in your pedal board?
Nope. Not
Okay.
right now.
Now, but when you perform, would you use the one on the neck for you?
For the most part, lately I've been using the one on the neck. I'm
Okay.
not forgetting it. Usually I have two of them, just in case if I do forget it.
Okay.
But usually when I have one of these on my board, what I'll do is I'll either have it in the beginning of the chain, which
Okay.
we'll talk about that when we get to the pedals, or I'll have it connected to my volume pedal.
Okay.
So my volume pedal will control the volume, the on and off, instead of the click.
Okay.
So.
And one thing, and I think this is very a suggestion for all of you guys. Your favorite artist, especially someone that you really like for guitar playing, Google, go on YouTube and search for the name of the artist and then guitar tech. And there's a lot of people that you can see a video from the guitar tech. The guitar tech is the person that puts all of this literally gear together. Because for the most part, if you're the guitar player of Aerosmith, or you're the guitar player of Taylor Swift, you don't put a lot of the gear together. You show up and you play. So there's a person in charge of the guitars, tuning them, restringing them, and all that. And those videos, sometimes those guys are very behind the scenes. They don't really show their face a lot of the time. So they love to tell people exactly what they're using and how they're using it. And those videos can be very, very interesting to be like, oh, that's how they do this. Oh, that's how they do that. Now, at the same time, it can be very challenging because we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. So sometimes when you're looking at big names, you're looking at big bucks on their guitar sound as well. So now let's try to go to the next, part here. Let me see if this is going through. And we have the compressor sustainer. So if you want to, give them an idea, it says a compressor adjusts the volume spikes when we play to create a more pleasant sound, especially when you're amplified. You're going to be a lot louder. And then a sustainer extends the duration of the notes so it sounds longer after it has been played. And one cool thing about what we're trying to do here is get you guys to actually see these things like literally being almost like demonstrated. So let's see if we can
Got a good shot of it.
Yeah,
so,
let me back that out a little bit so you can see it.
So my compressor is this one right here. It's Cali 76. Pretty much what it does, it gets the volume. So if I play really hard, like for example, if I were to turn it off, and I'm gonna play really hard, check this out, you're gonna actually be able to hear. It's very aggressive. When I play very soft, you almost don't hear it. So what it does, it smooths it out, and then if I play really hard, it's not as aggressive. And when I play softer, yeah, I actually played softer. If you don't believe me, I actually did. So it actually brings up the lower signal from it. So when I usually play with it, I don't have it too aggressive. But if I want to play different styles of music, so I'll do something like this. That's with the compression really aggressive. I don't use it that aggressive. I kind of blend it some way so it sounds something like this.
Okay, now for me, I would say, and one thing that we want to try to tell you guys, we're talking about our experience. Your experience may be different, or your favorite artist may be different, but we're trying to give you a framework. It's almost like that is a must, and it's one of the first things that you should probably invest in, because you're gonna use it for the most part, in 100% of your playing. Yeah. You're gonna put it on, you're gonna get it to settings that you like, and you're gonna keep it on the whole time. And if you're an acoustic guitar player, I also really like with especially the sustainer part, because let's say if you're doing an introduction with a singer, you're holding a chord, for 4 counts. The sustainer just makes an acoustic guitar sound beautiful. So to me, the first time that I got my hands on a good one, I was like, oh, okay, this sounds a lot more like the records. You know, it's almost like to me was a big block that I don't know, just really felt like it was like missing.
It shapes the sound.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah. Would you say how yours? You always keep it on? Like
for the most part, yeah. For the most part, I always have it on. Sometimes I'll tweak the settings depending on the style that I play. It's all on the style, right? You know, if I play jazz, I'll probably put it up a little bit. Depends if I want more natural sound or more compressed sound.
Experimentation is key. Do you know the guy of Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I know who he is. I don't remember his name.
He has, and Google it and check his guitar tech. He has 3 pedal boards with about 40 pedals each. So he has like something crazy, like 120 pedals. And not only he has that amount of pedals, I saw his guitar tech saying that almost every show they change them. Yeah. They're not the same. They're not in the same order. But he loves to experiment. He loves to do the guitar solo today is going to be with this, and this. But it's just crazy. I think that's, of course, like, I mean, when you get at that level, you probably have a way to be like, I just want 100 pedals on stage.
It's a never-ending thing. Like, I've changed my pedal board so many times. It's just like
I saw a guitar tech say that we're always in the pursuit of the perfect tone. And this is talking about a major artist, and it's absolutely true. Like, you're always trying to change and always trying to improve and sound the best that you can. So next up, Overdrive. So why are all the Overdrives green? Do you know?
It's based off the Tube Screamer circuit, so they
really?
copy, something like that.
So an Overdrive recreates the sound of an amp when pushed to its maximum volume, and of course it adds a little bit of grit to your sound, especially when you play a little bit harder. One thing, and to me, one thing that is interesting, when many years ago, bands used to perform for 2,000 people, and at the beginning, you know, I would say, I don't know, 70 years ago, there was no speakers, so bands needed 4 trumpet players and, you know, like a drummer, and it was hard to hear people, so they started to create speakers to try to balance things, and they started to create amps for guitar. One thing that they say that started to happen is because they would play for so many people, they started to crank it to the point that the speakers were almost like burning. But they started to like the sound that it was coming from playing and having that speaker almost be about to break. So they found a way to recreate how that sounds without, of course, breaking the speaker, because you don't want to destroy the speakers that you guys are using. But overdrives are an absolute must. It doesn't matter the I would say almost the style of music that you play, you know, unless you're an acoustic guitar. Would you put an overdrive on acoustic guitars?
Depends.
Probably not, right?
It depends. I mean, experimentation, right?
Okay.
But if you're playing something acoustic, no. Okay. You wouldn't do that.
Now let's go to a close-up of your board, and let's see if you can show them a little bit of your overdrive.
Yeah. So right now I have 2 overdrives. I have this one right here, which is pretty much my lighter stage, and then this is a combination of distortion and overdrive. So this would be the drive side, which is a little bit heavier. So if I play clean tone, we have something like this. And my lighter stage would sound something like this. It's very hard to hear this one because I have it light. I'm going to raise up the drive a little bit so you can hear it. So this is clean. Drive. So right there you can hear it drives a little bit harder. Now I have this one light because I usually like to stack them. That's when you use both of them together. But this would be the heavier one. So clean signal. And put the volume up just a little bit so you can hear it. There you go. So you can hear it. It's driven. It sounds like an amp that's being pushed really hard.
Yeah.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, overdrive. One of the things, and we were doing some research when we were about to put this class together, and when you're talking about overdrive, one of the things that is almost, I guess, different about this one and the next one we're going to be talking about is that when you play softer notes, it doesn't have as much effect. Yep. So the effect kind of like almost slides from not a lot of effect, soft notes, to a lot of effect on louder notes, which doesn't happen with the next one.
I should show that, right?
Sure. Let me go to the close up. And let's do. Go.
So I have this one on right now. So if I play soft, sounds pretty clean actually. Now I'm gonna play a little heavier. I try with this one, the same thing. Now since it's heavier, you're gonna hear it, but the harder I play, the more you're gonna hear the effect.
Okay, cool. And we have here, Ice Coffee Tone says that maybe light overdrive for acoustic, for an acoustic guitar solo. Would you put overdrive a little bit on a guitar? If you're doing an acoustic guitar solo?
You can. You just got to be careful. If you put too much drive, you will get feedback, and that's not good. There's actually another pedal that we don't have, and I'll explain it real quick. I actually have one. It's a boost pedal.
Okay.
A clean boost pedal. And pretty much what it does, I don't know if you want to put the shot of this real quick.
Sure.
And you could use this. I have a little white one over here. I use that for my solo leads. Pretty much all you have to do, if I play a little solo, click it and it gets louder. That you could actually use that for an acoustic solo. It might help a little bit more.
Okay.
It depends if you want the grit, the distortion side, that overdrive. It all depends on what you want.
Yeah, as with anything, it's of course options. So next up on here on the lineup, we have Distortion. Now Distortion and Overdrive, and we're again doing some research for this. It's almost like this. They two blend, and there's companies and products that are very hard to like. Okay, is it an Overdrive or a Distortion? Yeah. But into the research that we made, one of the main differences is that the distortion would apply equally to all of the notes, even when played softly. So it's almost like the way that I like to think about it, I guess it has to do with distortion. To me, just sounds more like hard rock, So it's almost like if you want rock, a little bit like, grid, it's almost like the distortion takes it into like the hard rock arena, If I think it's hard to take an overdrive as much as it's almost like the distortion is already lives in that space that is harder to rock, and it's harder to take it to it's like a rocky song, but I don't want that much in your face tone. The distortion is already there, so it's almost hard to like tame it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean there's different stages you could say, for overdrive, there's light overdrive, middle overdrive, heavy overdrive. Once you get past the heavy overdrive, you go to distortion. Pretty much is a blend of both. Distortion, and then there's the fuzz, which is another one.
Yes. And we're giving you guys a PDF, so definitely make sure that you download that, because in the PDF you're gonna have the specifics of the products that we recommend. We don't want to break the bank for anyone, and one thing, and we know a lot of our students are young. Now, I can tell you, because I think we all started like this, I am going to do probably a workshop talking about keyboards. My first keyboard was like less than $40, and it was this little keyboard that I actually still have. And my dad was like, okay, I'm going to get it for you, and if you really stick with this, we will replace it. It is absolutely normal. A lot of these pedals are $50 to $100 and more. So, of course, if you're younger, you may need to, one Christmas, shoot for one. And maybe the next Christmas, shoot for another one. We don't recommend necessarily equipment that we feel is going to break or sounds terrible. So the stuff that we recommend is already like good. But at the same time, it's stuff that if you take good care of it, this may last you your lifetime, right? If you don't damage it, like a lot of this stuff, it's not gonna get damaged. It's not gonna sound bad in 2 and 5 years. It's flavors, and some of them may be a little bit like you're gonna start using different things, depends on how things change in music. But that is a very important, I guess, aspect. So did we show them your distortion? We talk a little bit about that. So let's go about that.
So my distortion, I have this one right here, which is the newest addition to the board. And it has 2 sides. So this would be the distortion side. So here's the clean signal. So raise the volume. Here's the distortion. So you could actually hear, and that's I have the drive pretty low. If I were to raise it, put it really high. So it gets really, really heavy compared to the drive.
Yeah, and of course, I think part of the beauty of all this stuff is you want to have options, because as a young guitar player, you don't want to, and I would say try to get things that can take you from A to B, because at the beginning, I mean, unless you only want to play hard rock, it's hard to get a pedal that can, it's very almost like already in a space, If you have, if you're young, I would broaden your options. So you can do something for your school, you can do something for your church, or you can do something for the local, the neighborhood rock band. But I think you want to almost have some different options. So next one that I really like also, and when I started getting into this, it was like a really cool. It's a delay, and when we're talking about this one thing that I find is interesting, and we'll see. I think there's a big debate into which one goes first, right? Delay or reverb, or reverb delay.
Delay reverb.
And that's like the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
Okay, so delay is an effect that copies the original signal and keeps playing it at specific intervals while decreasing its volume. So pretty much it sounds a little bit like when you yell, I guess, in the, you're in like by some high mountains and you hear
It's an echo.
So it's an echo, and the echo that comes back to you usually drops in volume. Now a lot of these pedals can really control the I guess the amount of copies that you get, the speed that you get them. Sometimes the copies don't fade, so we'll show you that. But one really cool thing is that it almost can be used, and let me switch back the camera. It also can be used to play with it. So it's almost like when you're playing, you're getting a note that is going to rebound to you, and you can use that rebound as almost like someone else had played it. And of course, Mr. One is probably really good at showing you that. But the possibilities are endless, and there's not a couple, but there's a lot of guitar players that literally what they do is a lot of that. You take the delay off, and it's almost like
the delay's gonna give it that texture.
Yeah,
it sounds really big.
So if you want to show them very basic what it does, and then we'll play a little bit so they can see it. There we go.
So I have my delays over here. So pretty much there's different types of delays. This would just be a normal one. So let me tap the tempo so you can hear it. I'll put the drive so you guys could hear that. So it's gonna copy exactly what I'm doing. Turn off the drive. All right, and if you want to play something like, so it's back there. You're not gonna hear when the guitar's playing too much.
You hear a lot when you play shorter notes because the copy is coming back and you can hear it very clearly.
Now, one of my favorite delays is called dotted eighth delay. That one is a little bit different. It's musically it's like a different time, you could say, right? So you see it's a little bit quicker. So what you do, you could actually combine it and do something. So
okay.
So you can see it gives it that texture.
Yeah, and one, I mean, in combination with other ones, it even picks it up into almost like another place. But one thing, and if you want to show them that, because I think that's probably important. Now, when you work with the delay, it has tempo. So you have the button there. If you can show them, I guess with your feet, it says tap there on the right, and there's a light blinking on it. So one thing that you do is that if you're playing a song and the song is like at this tempo, you tap 4 counts.
Yeah.
So you tap 4 counts on the floor on that button. That gives the machine the tempo, and then when you start playing, that's at the speed that the copy of your sound is coming at you. So if you want to show them a couple of different speeds, so they know. Because one thing that to me is interesting is you see sometimes guitar players on stage. Especially, I feel like when you see big shows and something changes and you can see the guy was not really had that program, so then you see them tapping 4 times to try to get their delay to sync back up.
Yeah, so it'll go something like so. This is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So I put the volume up, of course. You can hear now if I wanted faster tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slower tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, some delays have the tap tempo function, some don't.
Okay.
Some is actually a knob, but for the most part, all the delays nowadays have tap tempo. Sometimes you have to buy a separate pedal for that.
Yes.
It just depends on it.
And when I was doing research, everyone says get one with the dotted eighth, right?
Yeah.
Dotted eighth, because that's one of the most musical, like the whole thing of like rebounding the notes to you. And I think these things do sound pretty interesting for acoustic guitar, right?
Yes.
So acoustic guitar definitely, like I think Distortion and Overdrive for the most part is the ones that, okay, a little bit more for electric guitar. But the other ones, compressor, sustainer, reverb, and delay. And reverb is the next one that we're going to be covering. For sure, we can talk about that. So let's jump into the next one. And the next one is going to be, as we said already, reverb. So reverb is, it is an effect that I think we get when you, let's say you go into like a really big church and you one time I went to a really big church, and by accident, long story, but one of the benches fell because I kind of like knocked it over, and the sound in the church, because it was really tall, it was incredible. It sounded like a bomb had exploded. Now, one thing with reverb is you get all these reflections in different walls that come back at you at different speeds. So the sound was produced once, but the sound comes back at you multiple times, and that's why it almost sounds like it's a really big sound. So I think there's this. It happens naturally in big spaces, and it's a really good addition because it's gonna make your sound I would say almost bigger, right? Would you say like it's almost like we have keyboards and other machines that you can turn the reverb on and off. And to me, the biggest way that I could describe it is like it automatically makes everything bigger. When would you use one? And if we can show them a little bit, how do you use yours? And what would be musical situations to be like, okay, this is where we need to.
Well, it all goes with the sounds, what you want. Let's just say if you wanted a shorter one. Let me see if I can get you a shorter. So just real quick. So this is my dry signal, so you can see. Now dry means there's no effect to it at all, right? So you can see it's very dry. It's nothing to it. Which sounds cool. Depends on what you need it for, right? Now reverb will sound something like this. You can hear it. That's a semi-long one, pretty much.
Like the bench that I brought.
Yeah, right. So you can hear when I start playing some chords. Now if I turn it off, check this out. It's very subtle, but so how it's dry, you leave it on, gives it that sustain. You wouldn't want to, depending on the situation, some people would like to put a lot of reverb. You got to be careful. Like for example, if I were to put a lot of reverb, this is my heavy one. I do not use this to play all out all the time because it makes it very muddy, but something like this. Makes it sound like you're in a cloud. It's pretty nice. It's my favorite effect. But you just want to be careful because if you use too much of it, it does get muddy.
Yeah, like ice creams, you know.
Too many flavors.
Yeah, you have a gallon of it, you know. One day you may end up paying the consequences. Now, when one thing, and you're the expert on this. Reverb and delay can be combined.
Yes. To
really enhance things. And I think that's where really like things can take on almost like another, I guess, direction. So if you want to show them that, because I think that's a very specific thing, that there's a lot of things, I think, including probably guitar solos, that you wouldn't put one without the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all with the sounds. You could combine any pedal, right? Okay. But this is an example for just reverb and delay. You're going to hear the texture come out a lot more. So you can check this out. Volume up. And the cool thing is too, one more thing, swells. You know, if you have a volume pedal, you could actually swell into the note. So you hit and then swell into the note. And you hear how it sustains. Now combining them, this is what it will sound like. 1, 2, 3. So put a little bit more.
Yeah, and one thing, and we want to definitely mention this, those two, and let me show you guys with the shot. The one on the top is the Big Sky. That's technically a reverb, right?
Yes.
And the one on the bottom, timeline, and that's also a delay. Those are really high end. You're gonna see a lot of really, I guess, successful people using them. They are very, very like almost a standard into, especially what has become, I don't know how long, 10 years.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons why they're the standard is because they have a bunch of presets.
Yeah.
So if you tour and let's just say you didn't want to like change it every time, you could actually preset for each song and actually connect them through MIDI. Okay. So you could actually click a button on your computer and it moves everything. Okay. There's different stuff.
So one thing, and for us, it's important to, of course, give you guys. I think music. It's invest in your musicianship first. at the beginning and at the end of your career, what you can do as a musician is more important than the gear. The gear is important and it's a part of what we do, but all of the time, and I think we can both, I guess, mention this, you sometimes travel, things go sideways, and you end up playing with instruments that are not at all what you need, but you still have to play. Yep. So it's, your musicianship should be within you, not necessarily the gear, the pedals, and all the gear that you use. But at the same time, I think it's important for you guys to know a little bit of like what exists and like what can be done, so you guys can start putting that into the framework. Now we want to start, I guess, getting here closer to the end by talking about accessories, because one thing that we really want to give you guys an idea is the whole aspect of like completing all of this together, and we're going to talk about how to put them together once, let's say, you have a couple of them on. So accessories, definitely a guitar pedal board, case, or bag. We put a link there on the PDF that you guys are gonna get of which one we recommend, and I believe it was fairly inexpensive, about 70, right? Like about 60, there, yeah. 60 nice. Now 10-foot cables, these are very, very useful because you want to have space between where you're putting your board and the amps and where you're going to be sitting as a guitar player. Sometimes that's going to be a short distance, yeah. Sometimes that's going to be 5 feet. So we want to recommend 10-foot cables, 2 of them, so you guys have space to the amp and space to where you're going to be playing. And then let me see if we can switch back here. Now, patch cables are these. So a patch cable is literally a short instrument cable that connects 2 of these together. So you can take, and you go from one to the other. And the good thing is that they're very easy to just really like sit in the pedal board very, very close by. Let me put this forward. So you can see them very, very close by. Now, it is important to don't buy garbage patch cables, right?
Don't do that.
Because you're going to pay the price on stage. So there will be one day that you're going to go and nothing happens. And people are like, okay, now such and such on guitar.
Yeah, and no
so yeah, you want to invest into decent patch cables because they do malfunction, but you definitely, the ones that are cheap, it's almost like it will malfunction.
Any little bend and that's it. It's done. Yeah. The good ones, you could bend a little and they won't break.
Yeah. It said there on the slide, and let me try to show it because this is the one that we use for the school. This is, and it's going to look pretty organized here because we're kind of like organized people. This is an iSpot. The iSpot, is that how you say it? One spot. Sorry, one spot. So the one spot, it's pretty much like an extension cord that has already the plugs that power these pedals. So these pedals, a lot of them are powered by, technically it's a 9-volt, right? So you can connect them and power them. And one thing that is very ideal with this is that you can get one of them. I don't believe that this is particularly expensive, $30, $40 around.
About 30, 40, yeah.
And with this, you can plug everything, including as you keep having more, you probably can do all of them. Yeah. So this is ideal, keeps everything pretty organized. And at the same time, I don't recommend to use 9-volt batteries. One thing, and I wanted to make sure that we don't forget this, part of our framework here is to get you guys, let's say, trained to perform. So a lot of the information that we give is like, okay, we're trying to get you to start being able to do rehearsals, do shows. If you're going to record, those are different stories. And at the same time, if you're going to be always home. So if you're going to be always home, maybe you don't need a bag for them, If they're never going to be moved, they're going to be in your room, you're never going to touch and move them anywhere. Okay, that's a different story. But all this advice, it's almost like for you guys to hopefully start using your musicianship. I tell my students all the time, try to use your musicianship outside of your living room, outside of your bedroom. Let other people know that you play, so you can actually start interacting with other people. We have some students that don't put anywhere that they play, and who's gonna know that you play guitar? If no one knows other than your family. So I think that is a very, very cool thing to do. So I think we are getting closer to the end. I don't know if you want to add anything to tips. And we need to talk about how to put stuff together.
Yeah, with the power source, I want to add something real quick.
Okay.
So there's the one spot, right, which is probably the more inexpensive option. But then there's some other power supplies that you would put under the board. I don't know if you can see it in the pedal board.
Let me show them.
So right there's like another blue thing under my board. That's another power supply. Those are more expensive. If you want to get more serious about your pedals and more in your tone, you could say, you would want to get one of those instead of a one spot. These would range, I would say, 120 and up. It depends on which one. These are just a little bit more reliable. The one spot are cables as well that could break. These are a little bit different. And this would sound everything a little bit more cleaner, less noise. But if you're playing in your house or you're playing smaller stuff, a one spot works too. I actually like to carry a one spot just in case something goes wrong.
That is, yeah. To me, I was amazed when I started seeing guitar tech videos, and pretty much everyone has 2 or 3 of everything.
Yeah.
Like I saw I believe it's a guitar tech for Metallica, and he said that sometimes companies go like, "Oh, we want you guys to try this pedal," and he's like, "Okay, fine. You have to give me, I think it's like 12 of them, because they have 3 different rigs, one in Europe, one in like I think North America, and I think another one somewhere else, and each rig needs I think 3 or 4." So it was like, okay, if you can send me 12 of them, sure, we'll give it a try. And our companies are like, okay, no, I guess we won't. So I don't know if we have any questions. It says here, can you guys explain how to connect the pedals? Output and input always confuses me for Stefan. Of course, that is definitely a part of what we're trying to do. So where do you want to start?
With a pedal. So you have an input and you have an output. So what you would want, let's just say you only have one pedal. What you would do is your guitar, the cable from the guitar would go into the input, and the cable that goes from the output will go to your amp. Okay. If you do it the opposite way, the pedal is not going to work. When you engage it, it will shut off your tone, your volume, your signal. So that's what you want to do. So guitar to input, output to amp.
Am I correct? Most of them is input on the right of the pedal and output on the left, right?
Yep.
Which is almost like, I guess, like a left hand that people chose that.
And even like, for example, I have some pedals that the inputs are not on the sides. They're actually, I don't know if you want to flip to the...
Yeah, they're on the back.
Yeah, so some of them are in the back. For the most part, this is the input. This would be the output. So that's what you would want to. So if you have multiple pedals, what you would do, right? Let's just say you start over here. Input, so guitar would go into here. Output will go into here. And this cable, which is a patch cable, is actually going to the input of the next pedal, then to the output. From here is going to the input of the next one, to the output, and so on until it gets to the end. And the output from here would go straight to the amp. Yeah,
and now one thing, and let's definitely mention about someone's asking if there's a buffer in that Altoid box or an in and out patch bay.
It's a patch bay. It's a patch bay.
It's a patch bay?
Yeah, it's a patch bay. So what I have...
Oh, but...
yeah, so what I have
so you have picks there?
Well, in the Altoid, I keep picks. Under it, there's a patch bay. So what I'll do is I have my input signal here. That goes connected to all the pedals. And then from the output, would go out back here. And this is the output to the amp.
Yeah. And at the same time, all that stuff is a little bit like higher end, you know. Especially if you want to spend bigger bucks. But it's definitely useful. Now, let's go in order. First, if you have all of these, and let's...
So the order I would put, taking away the patch bay. Let's just say you just have regular pedals. I would go compression
first, right?
Right. Overdrives, distortion,
and tuner.
Yeah. Well, it depends. It all depends on the volume pedal where you want to tune it. Because there's some people that connect the tuner with their volume pedal. So what they do is the signal is up when they're playing. They turn the volume down for the tuner. If you don't have a volume pedal, you could put the tuner in the beginning. Yeah, the tuner would actually.
Would you put the tuner first and then the compressor, or the compressor first and then the tuner?
I would actually put it first.
Okay.
First thing in my signal.
So tuner first.
Tuner first.
Okay.
Then compression, overdrives. From lightest to heavy. That's how I do it.
Do you want to show them, I guess, on yours? Like, what's like you don't have a tuner, but you're going so.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, I'm going straight from the patch bay into the compression.
If you want to explain a little bit, what is the patch bay?
Patch bay just pretty much just makes it a little bit more neater. So I have, instead of having my input here and the output over there, I have everything through one side. So it helps on the stage where you're playing. If you just want all the cables to be on one side, makes it neater pretty much.
Okay, but it also regulates a little bit like noise-wise and all that to make a clearer signal?
This one doesn't. This one's just more for organizing the cables a little bit. That's pretty much it. There's different types of patch bays. Some have buffers, some have boosts and stuff like that. Mine's just to organize this stuff.
Okay.
So what I have the compressor going to my drives. So from over here, going to the drives, light drives, then to the heavier drives. Then from the heavy drive, I actually have going to the boost. So this I would use after my drives, so the volume could get louder. If you put the boost behind your drives, you're not getting louder, you're just getting more drive. So it depends what you want it for. From there, then I have my volume pedal. Now, why do I have the volume pedal in the middle instead of the beginning or at the end? Because if you put it before the drives, it's gonna affect the distortion, the drive side, not the volume. So if I were to play, right? This would be the heavy, right? Now if I lower the volume, you don't hear nothing. If I were to put it before, it won't affect the volume. It'll actually affect the drive. That's, a lot of people don't understand that. They get, we'll get more into detail later on. With
well, we'll probably do a second workshop on a little bit more advanced pedals.
Yeah. And the other reason why I have it before the effects stuff is because if I have it after, it would pretty much just cut everything off. It'll cut the effects and everything. What I want when I play usually, I want the tail of the effect. So if you hear this, so I lowered the volume, but the effect kept going.
Yeah.
If you put it at the end, it's gonna cut everything off. Right. So from the volume pedal, then I have the delay, and then to the reverb. In that order.
So definitely, as with anything, there's a lot of the chicken and the egg, never ending for this. There's a lot of debate of like what goes first, and I think we're trying to tell you things that I think work for us. I would say try to experiment, and also I almost believe probably the order that we went through is a good order to do, right? Tuner, then compressor, then an overdrive, but then first a lighter overdrive, then a distortion. And of course, then get into probably which one would say delay first and reverb last.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the volume pedal somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, because we're talking about, and to give you guys an idea, and we're trying to. I think if you purchase all the products that we recommend, we're talking about almost like $500 to $700. So we know that's a big price for a lot of families, and we absolutely believe that you can do that one thing at a time, 1 year at a time, one Christmas, one birthday at a time.
Yeah, when I started with the overdrive first. Yeah, that was my first thing. Overdrive, then delay, then I went to compressor. I understood what a compressor was. I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yes, and let's try to bring it down to this. We don't believe in recommending things that are cheap. We don't believe that they sound that good, or they usually break. They do. So I would put your money into better gear and almost save for the next thing. Yeah. So now another thing, and Juan is an expert on this, you can get a lot of this stuff used. And especially now in the climate that we are, there's a lot of people trying to get rid of a lot of stuff. So you may find, this pedal I think was probably almost $200. You can probably find it for $100.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff is probably like at least 50% used. And a good thing about it is, for the most part, I know you sell and buy pedals all the time. Have you ever bought one that was damaged? Because one thing that I think is interesting is they're pretty rugged. This stuff, if it doesn't get wet, chances are it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. The most common thing that I've noticed, if you are into buying used pedals, one thing you want to do is test it first.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to test it, make sure everything works on it. One thing that I noticed that does happen with some of these pedals is sometimes the knobs, like for example, if you were to raise the volume and lower it, you might get some scratchy sound. That means that it's probably dirty on the inside. You could clean that actually. And then another thing that usually is the typical thing is the foot switch. Sometimes you click on it and you hear some pop or some pops, or sometimes it cuts the signal.
Yeah.
That means that something internally is damaged. Can it be fixed? Yeah, I mean, I fixed a few of them before. You just have to know how to fix it.
Okay. So we want to thank everyone for being a part of this. Ice Coffee Tone says that Boss pedals are reasonably cheap and built like tanks, and I absolutely agree. Boss stuff is Boss is owned by Roland, right?
Yep.
And I love Roland. I think Roland, I have had anything that I have had from Roland has worked really, really well. It's expensive stuff. It's a little bit like a brand that you can trust, high-end stuff, really good sounds, built like a tank, but a little bit on the pricier point. So definitely let us know if you are watching, what's your age. If you're watching on the replay, we would love to continue to bring content like this. There's a ton of content on the internet, but for us, we're a music school. We're a music school with a lot of emphasis to beginners and for people that are young. So we're trying to put more content for that age because we don't believe that there's that much. And it makes a difference, if you are 40, that if you are 7 and you're trying to learn how to play guitar. So check what we have up on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you, Mr. Juan, for your talent. If you want to take it away there by playing a little bit. And we are, once again, super grateful to have you guys be a part of what we do. We'll continue to bring workshops, so check on our Facebook events as we post them there pretty regularly.
There it goes.